Nashville, Tennessee. It's known for music and Vanderbilt University. That's right, Vanderbilt, the Commodores. They beat Alabama in football. If you're from Australia and New Zealand, you might have no idea what I'm talking about. It's okay. Someone out there will get it. But anyways, Shane Van Gisbergen made his first ever start in the NASCAR Cup Series at Nashville. And look at this. It's the Red Bull car. Ooh, fancy. And the sunset. Very pretty. Anywho, SVG's first ever race at the Nashville Super Speedway. He ended up finishing 25th, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Of course, just 1 week ago in the Coca-Cola 600, he got his first oval top 15 of the season. Really good run. They were up in the top 20 all night. So how did they back it up? And they actually had speed once again, but as I said, ends up finishing 25th. So how did he get there? So, interesting note about Nashville, it is technically Trackhouse's home track. The Trackhouse Entertainment Group and Justin Marks, they are based, or they live in Nashville. So Nashville, it's a very big deal for Trackhouse for the 1, the 88, and the 99. Tootsie's, which sponsored the 99 this weekend, they are a bar, lounge, concert area or something in downtown Nashville. It's like a really big deal, as I said. So a lot of heavy emphasis placed on this race for Trackhouse. It's a 1.33 mile, which is equivalent to 2.14 kilometer racetrack. The banking is 14 degrees in the turn. They got a tri-oval, so it's 9 degrees of banking in the front. And interestingly enough, the backstretch actually has 6 degrees of banking. It's a good chunk of banking. It is a concrete racetrack. The majority of tracks we go to, I believe, are asphalt. But Dover, Bristol, Nashville, I believe those are the only 3 concrete tracks. Someone in the comments of this live stream can correct me if I'm wrong. But yes, that's another interesting fact about this racetrack. Now, SVG, after the great performance at Charlotte, was in Group B this week. And you may be wondering, why am I telling you this information? I have not told you what group he has been in all season long in these SVG race recaps. Well, it's because being in Group B is a good thing. Group B, they go out second. Group A cleans up the racetrack for them. They lay some rubber down. They kind of get the track ready for Group B in a sense. And so Group B, they are usually the top driver, so naturally they're quicker. But they usually put down the quicker lap times as well. So SVG was able to go out later in qualifying, which is preferred. And as a result, he put together his best non-super speedway oval qualifying effort of the year together. I believe he technically qualified better at Daytona, but based off the duels, he ended up starting behind. So this was his best oval start of the season. Let's just not complicate it, say it that way. He ends up starting 23rd in this race. Honestly, like a quiet stage 1 on the radio for the 88 team, like from everyone except for the spotter. The spotter's always talking because he has to be, but Steven Duran didn't say too much. Shane didn't say too much. By lap 6, he was in 20th. On lap 25, Steven Duran asked him about the bump. There's like this bump in turns 3 and 4 that goes over the tunnel to get in and out of the racetrack, and they had to like repatch it, and it's this bump. And so everyone talked about it the entire weekend. Steven Duran asked, like, hey, how's it handling over the bump? And SVG said, not terrible. Lap 36, just a little bit free. Like, no big complaints, not saying it's terrible or it's way too tight, way too loose. Just said a little bit of free. This first stage was 90 laps long, so you're going to pit somewhere in the middle here. They pitted on lap 41. They were 21st at the time. Just ran 20th, 21st the majority of the stage. Said that the car felt good, but it was a bit snug in the center. And then they end up finishing stage 1 22nd. So basically finished where they started. They got up as high as 20th, started 23rd, finished 22nd. They kind of ran literally just in this position group of 4 cars. They only did slight adjustments. You know, the car was feeling good for SVG. No need to throw everything at it, take a long pit stop, adjust some big things. Like, he was doing fine at the time. He also apologized because during the pit stop, he went a little bit long in his box, and if you pit outside the box, it's a penalty. He wasn't quite outside the box, but they did have to adjust where they actually pitted him in the pit stall. They had to move to him versus him moving to them. They restart 22nd. They end up falling to 26th. There's a quick caution on lap 105. First bad word of the night. If I remember seeing it right, I think he in turns 1 and 2, he hit the apron a bit when he made a move and he kind of slid up the racetrack, and that's when he fell to 26th. He said, "I made a good move, then I effed it up." So we try to keep it somewhat PG on here. They end up taking 2 tires. They come out 25th. And then on lap 112, I'm calling it the Kyle Busch incident. I wrote that down. I got to cover up the multiple bad words, I think. I called it the Kyle Busch incident. It wasn't actually an incident. There was no spinning. There was no wrecking. Dang it. I meant to do this. I'm going to have to record this after, but I'm going to go actually watch the Kyle Busch tape of what happened from his perspective, and then I'll get back to you. All right, here I am in the future. After further review, I feel like an NFL ref right now. Anyways, it turns out that Kyle Busch had a great restart, got himself a run going down the front stretch, immediately cut down to pass Shane Van Gisbergen, make it 3 or 4 wide. I don't know how many cars there were at the time. It was an aggressive move for sure. You could argue that. They didn't make any contact. He didn't shove him up the road. I mean, obviously, if you're Shane Van Gisbergen, you just got 4 or 5 positions. You lost 4 or 5 positions in one corner because a guy dove to your inside, but nothing egregious, nothing crazy, just a typical NASCAR restart. But obviously, SVG was on the losing end of it, and as a result, said some bad words. Anyways, that's what ends up happening, and that's what you can see from the Kyle Busch point of view. But SVG gets on the radio. I forgot to pull up the quote, but he says a couple of bad words here. I ended up tweeting it. I think it's the first time I've ever tweeted these words too, which is kind of funny. But SVG gets on the radio and says, "What the F was that 8 doing? What a bleep head." So yeah, SVG was not happy about the move that Kyle Busch put on him. Came on the radio, said some mean words, and that was that. As I said, I wrote down incident. They never made extreme contact, I don't think. Remember, I haven't looked at the Kyle Busch footage yet. But it was nothing to ruin a day. It was nothing to cut a tire, spin someone out. But he was salty about it in the moment. I don't think it'll boil over, so it's nothing but I wrote down incident. It wasn't really an incident, but it was just really funny. The response to it I thought was really funny. So he ends up falling to, after all of this, he falls back to 29th, which is the lowest he ran all day. Had to dodge a wreck in the process because 2 laps later, Bowman and Gregson start wrecking. But yeah, just as I said, really funny incident. After avoiding that incident, they end up restarting 28th, and then guess what happens, guys? Another caution. It's like the Texas recap. We got another caution, baby. Lap 26, they're up to 22nd, and then just a few laps later, guess what happens? Another caution. That is right. So after this other caution, they end up restarting 19th. We've had a few people pit by this time, but they can make it to the end of the stage. 49 laps to go in stage number 2. On lap 140, SVG makes a pass to get up to 16th, gets on the radio and says, "Woohoo." Thought that was noteworthy, apparently. And then this is quite the quote. No curse words either. I don't have to self-bleep. I don't have to, mute anything. This is the best balance I've had, lap 149. Real-life words from Shane Van Gisbergen. And then in the last 5 laps of stage number 2, he makes up 3 spots, finishes 13th in stage number 2. Now, yes, he doesn't get any stage points for that. Statistically, doesn't do much for him, I guess. But when you look at his results this season, if we come over to his statistical profile, which I love doing, by the way, during these live streams, we look at a lot of statistical profiles. We come over to the driver stats. On the ovals, ignore COTA. That's different. Finishing position, 33rd, 23rd, 31st, 34th, 32nd, 34th, 20th, 30th, 29, 20. It's been getting better, obviously, as time has gone on. But in the stages, in the early parts of the race, we have not seen him competitive in these races, finishing well in the stages. And yes, I know the ultimate goal is stage points, but when you look at a situation like Shane Van Gisbergen, to finish 13th in stage 2 at Nashville in a car he's never driven at, or a cup car he's never driven at the track, I think that's a win for that team. Brutally honestly, I think that's a win in the sorts. Unfortunately, though, after such a strong start to the race, running right outside the top 10 to start stage 3, which is the most critical stage of the race, unfortunately, that was their peak. That was the highest they would go. Prior to the stage caution, or prior to the stage pit stop, SVG said that the car was great. They had a slow pit stop. They were slow on the left rear, had to wait a bit for it, but they only lost a couple of positions. They end up restarting 15th, so still in a decent position. Not a great restart, though. They end up falling back to 20th. There's a quick caution, so all of a sudden you're shuffled back a little bit more, a little bit further off the top 10, obviously, but still not a bad position. Steven Duran comes on the radio with 79 to go, says that they're looking to make 30 or 40 more laps on the tires. And at this point, they're running 19th, so they've only made up a single spot at this point. So with 57 to go, the pit cycle begins. Everyone starts pitting for their final pit stop of the race. At this point, SVG is P20. 51 to go, SVG actually comes on the radio. Remember last week at Charlotte, they ran long. They stayed out much longer than the leaders in the majority of the field so that they would have a tire advantage to go past cars, and they end up going from 18th to 14th. Tires were not wearing this weekend. You could take 2 tires and you could run great. As long as you had track position, you were in a good spot. Like there was not a lot... There was passing, but it was extremely difficult to pass this weekend. So track position was key. Staying out long at Charlotte last week worked. It's fresh on their minds. So Shane Van Gisbergen with 51 to go, he comes on the radio and says, if we could keep running, I'd like to. He wants to keep going. At this point, the way the cycle had come out, he was running 6th. They end up, well, this week that call did not work out. It was a great start to the race. Stages 1 and 2 went fantastically. They started up front. They ran well. They end up finishing in the top 15. They had a right strategy call at the end. Everything went right for them last week. They put together a full race, I would say, outside of the little bit of the damage on the splitter, which wasn't their fault. They put together a full race last week on an oval. This week we saw some slips, in a sense. We saw some cracks, I guess, if you want to call it that way. Late in the race. Started out great. Had a great second stage. Got up to 13th, but in the third stage slipped back. Slow pit stop. Not a great strategy call there at the end. They end up 25th. And some more news for Shane Van Gisbergen. Unfortunately, there's this thing called the in-season tournament. It is new to NASCAR this season. 32 drivers fighting for $1 million over 5 races. Whoever advances the furthest, whoever is the final guy standing or whatever, they win $1 million American dollars. Unfortunately, the next 3 races seed that race, and you had to be top 32 in the points in order to be in that competition. And as you can see here in the points, SVG 33rd. So Shane Van Gisbergen will not be fighting for the in-season tournament championship. Finishes 21 points outside of the playing field. I don't even know what to call it at this point. But he still gets to race. Like, he's still going to be racing. He's still going to be fighting for, top 15s, top 10s at Michigan next week. He's still going to get a chance to win at Mexico in 2 weeks. So it's not like their season's over right now. It's just an in-season tournament. It's a fun kind of spice up the summer. Usually NASCAR in the summer, this is kind of like the low point of the year. Everyone's like, all right, let's just get to the end of this thing. Let's get to the playoffs. Early season hype is worn off. Like, it's just the middle, So they're trying to spice it up a bit. But Shane Van Gisbergen's still going to be racing. SVG fans, you only have to wait 13 more days now, I think, till a road course. So I know you guys will be happy then for that. But yeah, he's getting some better oval finishes now, though. So, anywho, I'm going to go back to this live stream now. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll go rewatch that Kyle Busch footage, and I guess you've already seen it because I've edited it in.